Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Casual AI Talk series for day 6. We're on a roll, and until now, we've been talking about a couple of different ways. We can train these models, we can fine tune these models, and what these models essentially are. But now we're kind of getting into the how of using them. And after today, and the next video, we're actually going to be getting more specific into how these models are used in AI for SC. So we're getting into the good stuff. Today, we're going to be talking about something that I find one of the most fascinating parts about how large language models work, and that's the matter of prompting. And today we're going to be talking about different ways you can prompt these models to get the maximum capability out of them. And funnily enough, there's not that much science behind it. I mean, you can definitely do science-based research on prompting, and a lot of people I know now actually do this. But it's very empirical research, so you can't give just like a theoretical proof of use this prompt and then you'll get Z outcome. It's just very experimental, and people are getting pretty good results with just like experimenting with different compositions, providing the model with different information and just seeing what's coming out. And so this is a really emergent field. This video might be irrelevant in 2 years, but as of the time of recording this, I compiled like a comprehensive list of some starter techniques at least. So modern foundation models, which we've been talking about what those are, take your Gemini, take your Claude, take your GPT-5, take your Llama if we're talking about open source models. They've already encoded a lot of information during their training process, and they've learned a lot when we're talking about AI for SC. Like they've learned a lot about code, about design patterns, about reasoning structures when decomposing tasks to solve them. And then when we're using them, the goal is to actually extract that information from their internal representation to make them use it. So essentially, we're trying to steer the model in a way to get the outcomes that we want. And that is basically only achievable if you do proper prompt engineering. What is prompt engineering? It's essentially curating a very detailed representation of your problem into a polished input, such that when you give that to the model, you get the outcome that you want. And there is this whole process around it. In modern software engineering, so AI for SE, it's really important to be able to actually craft proper prompts when you're either just like prompting to get like specific outputs of the LLM when you're coding yourself, or just when you're doing research. Being able to actually craft prompts that get you the outcomes that you want is really crucial. Before we get into any specific method or like techniques, I want to distinguish between two types of prompting. So we have zero-shot prompting and a few-shot prompting. I talked about this briefly in day 1, but zero-shot prompting is when you just ask the model to do something without giving it examples. So it's just based on a well-phrased prompt. So like let's take the example: you give the model a specific function in Python, and you ask it generate me a unit test class using the unit test module to test XYZ function of this class or function or whatever. And if that prompt includes sufficient context, so let's say the function signature, the doc string, and I don't know, like maybe even a spec of the function, the model should probably be able to do some specification-based testing, or at least try to do it. Whether it achieves it is a whole other question. But in that same context, when you're doing few-shot prompting or prompting with examples, you would be like, okay, I still want you to give me tests for this class, for example, but then you also provided with examples for two other classes. So you're like, example one, this was the class under test, this was the test suite that got generated, and then example two, same thing, and then you're like, I want you to now create me write me a test suite for this class to using the same style. And based on what we know from essentially the GPT-3 paper, these models are really good at doing this. So when you give them examples, they're very good at mimicking the pattern, and it extracts that knowledge from the internal representations and nudges the model towards that way of thinking that you want them to do. And actually, a lot of so like let me just I'm going off script now from my notes. So now that I'm thinking about it, like when you're using some LLM as a judge techniques nowadays, you can actually also do this. So when you're trying to, for example, classify a specific, I don't know, if you're trying to classify a specific response into 4 categories, and then you can find the the 4 most similar examples that you have, and then include it in the prompt, and you're like, these are some responses that look similar to this one. How would you classify this new example? And that's just you can like be like, okay, what you judge what the label here is, or just like, I mean, here I'm using a very broad term of LLM as a judge though. Sidetrack. So that's the distinction between the zero shot and few shot prompting. So that's that. And then there was like somewhere around like 2021 or 2022, I can't remember precisely when, there was this paper by Wei et al. Which introduced the idea of chain of thought. So they had this wild idea, not really wild, but bear with me. So they were like, okay, let's just ask the model to explain to us why it's doing something. Really, really simple stuff. So let's go back to the same example of writing unit tests. You're asking this model to write you unit tests. You just append something to the end of the prompt. Before writing the tests, explain to me step by step what paths in the function you're going to be testing, and why you're testing them, and then provide me with the final response. So it's doing like a step by step walkthrough essentially through the response, or as some put it, like essentially explaining the answer. And apparently this activates the model's latent reasoning pathways. And from a bunch of literature afterwards, like from that paper onward, like this is shown to have like really good results. Like it, one, not only like makes it like more traceable and interpretable why a model is doing something, it causes like improvements in the results. So this is something that you should definitely consider. It's very easy to implement, and you get pretty good results out of it. And yeah, those are like two really major things, and there are a bunch of other things that you can do, which I'll just like bullet through. Um, there's this prompt crafting handbook or something. I don't really know the specific name. It's in the resources. It's really handy. I would definitely go over it and just see how people are doing this prompt engineering. And OpenAI also actually has a new library of prompts, which I would definitely have a look at. So I'm just going to go over them. So there's this idea of role specification. So define who the model is, and that defines the model's perspectives. And this has been shown to actually have a very good impact. So when you're writing something like with like complex design patterns and stuff, you would like technically when you're doing it in the real world, you would want a software architect to be looking at this. So when you want to do something like that, just be like, you are an expert software architect. That works. Just prepend your prompt with that phrase, shown to work. Pretty simple. Context provision is a matter we'll get back to a bit later in the series, but essentially provide relevant context. So code snippets, comments, issue descriptions when we're talking in an AI for SE setting. So because models are context sensitive, when you provide them with good context, they'll do better in the task. So just like provide a couple of representative examples. As I said, reasoning cues, really important. To just like think step by step, justify your reasoning, the actions you're taking, reflect before finalizing. These are all things that can improve the performance of the model. Structured outputs actually. So provide the framework you want the model to create the responses in. So if you want JSON format, provide the specific format that you want the model to give the answer in, and then a lot of the times that can actually improve the results that you get. You can do like even self-evaluation prompts. So this is like self-reflective. So after you've had the model generate something, reprompt it, being like, okay, you generated this, or like somebody else generated this, because models have been shown to be biased to their own responses. So you say, okay, this was generated. Check it for potential logical errors, for example. So there's a lot of stuff that you can actually do, and there's a bunch more, but these were the ones that I could think of off the top of my head. That was essentially what I wanted to talk to you about. It's really important how you phrase stuff, and there are a bunch of resources which I would just go over, see how people are prompting, and the only way you can actually get the hang of this is to just play around with different models. Different models have different ways they expect you to give input. And when you read like these technical papers from the models, from the model distributors for example, like OpenAI or Claude or Anthropic or Meta, they have specific ways they've trained these models, and they expect you to give that responses in that format. So use them, learn them, and make the best use of the models. So today we talked about how we can improve the performance of the models using prompt engineering techniques and not thinking about fine-tuning. Tomorrow, the next episode will be about the topic of reinforcement learning on human feedback, RLHF, and how that essentially ties everything together, and that will also mark the end of section 1 of Casual AI Talks. And afterwards, we'll be transitioning into AI for SC specific topics. Thank you for sticking around. If you like this video, like, share, and subscribe. Follow me on LinkedIn, and till the next one. Cheers.